So let's start with a cube that brings together faculty from the School of Natural Resources and Environment, the Law School, and the Taubman College of Architecture and Urban Planning, as well as a faculty member and postdoctoral fellow from the School of Public Health. This project is titled Transdisciplinary Discovery to Benefit Detroit Neighborhoods and Freshwater Resources. We'll hear from Professors Alicia Alvarez and Joan Nassauer.
Thank you. I'm Alicia Alvarez, and this is my collaborator, Joan Nassauer. We're going to tell you about how our MCubed project has evolved to focus on transdisciplinary discovery to benefit Detroit neighborhoods and freshwater resources. Transdisciplinary means different disciplines and stakeholders coming together to define and conduct research that can be put into action. Our work in Detroit demonstrates how this approach, which we'll describe in more detail later, can work. First, Detroit. Detroit is a city that epitomizes cities grappling with the legacies of past industrialization. Our team focused on the urgent challenges for people who live in the neighborhoods that are riddled with abandoned houses and vacant lots. Detroit is a city of strong neighborhoods and has enormous natural resources potential. It sits at the center of the largest freshwater resource in the world, the Great Lakes. At the same time, the Detroit Blight Task Force this year issued a report that demonstrates that more than half of the 380,000 parcels in the city are either blighted or vacant. And this includes 75,000 or more parcels that have a structure that need to be demolished. It's estimated that this will cost $2 billion or perhaps more. We work together to understand the experience of living in this situation and the governance factors that affect the dynamic of vacancy and the potential for recovery. Starting our MCubed work, we all shared a commitment to research that leads to meaningful action on the ground. Each of us brings extensive experiences with different Detroit neighborhoods, organizations, and agencies. The map that you see shows that collectively we had worked in neighborhoods all over the city. Our work before the cube, each of us looked to strike a balance between building knowledge in our own discipline and at the same time doing research that mattered to people in cities. Our project has become more transdisciplinary over time, as Joan will explain. We've been joined by the Detroit Land Bank Authority, the Detroit Water and Sewerage Department, and colleagues in engineering, the Institute for Social Research, and natural science to conduct research on the ground in Detroit. We each come from different disciplines. Me in law, Joan from landscape architecture, Marky Dewar from urban planning, and Amy Schultz and Natalie Sampson from public health. With these different disciplines, we brought a perspective from our past research that was a search for governance and planning approaches to the population loss in these cities, the need to build on what residents value in their neighborhoods now, the need to recognize human health effects, and the search for forms of land ownership that allow neighborhoods to change for the better.
When our cube began, we expected to share the substantial data that each of us already had from our work in Detroit neighborhoods. We made progress on this when we discovered that the work that each of us did related to cues to care, a concept that I had developed in my past work on landscape perception. In the images you see here, you see cues to care in Detroit. These are noticeable signs of the intention to maintain structures and landscapes. And as such, they serve as evidence of frequent, caring human intention. Margie Dewar, Eric DeWicki, and I conducted a survey of cues to care in 2 neighborhoods in Detroit with the support of the Detroit Integrated Assessment of the Graham Institute. And you see evidence of these, or you see examples of these cues to care here. They include mowing. They include building fences around your property and sometimes vacant property near your own. Planting flowers, trimming shrubs, all of these indicate that someone is there and taking care of things. We had mapped these cues. Meantime, Amy Schultz and her group in public health in the Healthy Environments Partnership had conducted their own research that related to these cues, and we were able to compare the results of these different data sets. We all were interested in whether the way your block looks, whether it looks like someone is taking care of it, may affect your interaction with your neighbors, your likelihood to stay in the neighborhood, your own sense of stress and personal safety, and the value of your real estate. We wanted to learn more about the intersection of the appearance of care and health in Detroit neighborhoods. So, with the support of a grant from the University of Michigan Office of Research and Wayne State's NSF Rise Up grant, this past year we interviewed residents in neighborhoods where we had worked before to learn how they saw care. This grant from UMOR also allowed us to bring in nationally acclaimed landscape photographer Chris Faust. And all the images you're seeing in our presentation today, with the exception of these, all of which were made by neighborhood residents, are the work of Chris Faust. In the Photo Voice project with residents, we learned that people in Detroit neighborhoods tended to see cues to care much the same way we had recorded them in our field work previously. They too identified flowers in the yard, mowing in your own yard, and sometimes far beyond it, gardens. All of these were cues that they identified in their own neighborhood. However, what residents identified often extended beyond their own block. They were looking at neighborhood play spaces and how they were maintained. And their sense of what indicated care even extended so far as the Detroit River, as you see in the lower right. Rain that falls in Detroit neighborhoods ultimately affects water quality in the Rouge River, as you see in the middle, the Detroit River, as you see at the bottom, and the entire Great Lakes. In neighborhoods, the immediate effects of rain and storms sometimes is flooding, like you see at the top, the result of last summer's August 11th storm. Considering water quality, I had worked with the Detroit Land Bank and colleagues in the natural sciences and environmental engineering to begin to think about design innovations in which some of the stormwater you see in the upper left could possibly be stored in the excavations of demolitions like you see in the lower right. However, this sort of design innovations would affect neighborhoods, not just water quality. We needed both a social assessment and an environmental assessment if we were to employ these innovations across the waves of demolitions expected in the city of Detroit. The water, with the support of a U of M Water Center grant, we were able to expand our CUBE disciplines to include the aquatic sciences, environmental engineering in concert with our collaborator, the Land Bank. And ultimately, our activities expanded to include the Detroit Sewer and Water Department as a research partner. Working together, we have designed these innovations to put stormwater that ordinarily would be flooding into excavations in the form of new types of neighborhood gardens. In the Côte Rouge neighborhood that you see in the upper right, on land-based sites, we will build these design innovations this fall. Water quality will be measured with our collaborator, the Detroit Sewer and Water Department, along with our team of scientists. And the gardens that will be developed will be like the visualization you see below, which was developed for the Lower East Side. In addition, we will survey people in the neighborhoods to understand how they perceive these new forms of gardens, as well as their anticipated health effects. The Water Center grant also enabled us to study the governance structures that affect our partner agencies. By analyzing governance structures in Detroit as well as Cleveland, we'll be able to offer new perspectives to Detroit stakeholders. Thanks to MCubed, we expect that what we are learning will be useful in neighborhoods, especially neighborhoods experiencing vacancy in cities globally. We expect our results to affect implementation of green infrastructure in legacy cities all around the Great Lakes. And we plan to help set Detroit on a firm path to becoming a vital urban center with great neighborhoods and abundant, clean freshwater resources. Thank you.